Good morning, Dave. Good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. We have a lower body workout today, as per usual, because it is Monday. We're going to be pairing our leg strength stuff today with some core work. Yay, which means that you do not need any shoes. I feel like I always need to tell you guys that, so you can either wear them or not wear them. In terms of equipment, I will be incorporating this chair, those 8-pound dumbbells, and these 2 bands into my exercises today. If for some reason you don't have something that I listed, I'm going to give you guys options that do not require any of this or some of it. So let's get you guys started with a warm-up that starts down on the floor, no equipment involved. We are going to get our low back, mid back loosened up with our bow and arrows. Come on down here, come on down to the floor with me. We're going to stack our legs and our arms up and then weave our top leg underneath our bottom. Arms are stacked. We'll take a big breath in and then exhale and cross our body. Try to get this arm down to the floor. And then we'll reach up and over our head and do this 5 times on each side. So we'll go through 4 more, trying to exhale into it. See if we can keep the knee down, get the shoulder down, get a feel for how we're feeling this morning. And we'll try to exhale and get a little bit more comfortable with every rep that we go through. So we'll go through 5. Ideally, straightening out this arm. I don't quite have enough room, so I'm just keeping it bent. But I am trying to get the shoulder down on the floor. And then again, reaching up and over. We'll do 5. And then you guys can switch and do the other side. So I'm going to actually switch all the way around so I can still see you guys. So we'll weave again, top leg under the bottom, stacked and stacked. And then we'll exhale and cross the body. So you may feel a little bit tighter, looser on one side more than the other. We'll just try to work it as we can this hour in the day. Most likely you guys just woke up and or have not done much before doing this. This is going to help us loosen up your back, your chest, your hips. We'll go through 5. And then, don't go too far, we're going to sit up into our 90-90 position. Or make sure I'm in the camera. Yes. So we have 90 degrees at both of our knees. We're trying to sit up as upright as possible without any help from the arms. But if you need to use your arms a little bit, that's completely fine because this should feel comfortable. We'll lock our feet in place and then flip the knees over to one side and then back over to the other side. So like I said, eventually try to have your arms up, not supporting you. But if you feel like you're kind of bent over and you can't quite sit up like this with nice posture, then we'll just lean back a little bit and use the arms. So we'll go back and forth 10 times total. Probably one of my favorite lower body, hip focused warm-ups. We get lots of stuff going on in this one, warming up our hips, our knees, and all the muscles around. So we'll go through 10, and then you guys can stand up to the top, and we'll come up to the front of our mat, standing hip width apart, arms down by our sides. We'll step back into a lunge, reach up, and at the same time, have one turn in towards that front knee. So we're trying to go down into the lunge and turn at the same time, going through 20 reps total, 10 on each side. So you should feel some opening happening in the front of the hip on this side, a little bit on the glute on the other leg here on the front leg. A bit of a stretch here. We'll go through 20 total. We're alternating those ones. So 10 per side. With the turn. Yes. Make sure we are. Yes. Okay. All right. So we'll do our thing on those ones. Take our time. Give it a balance, warming up as well with that little turn, kind of throws you off a bit, I know. So we'll go through 20, alternating, 10 per side. Don't accidentally do 40. And then we'll get ourselves into a squat stance when you guys are done that one. So my feet are a little bit wider than my hips. Toes have that slight angle out to the sides. And that is important in this one because we're going to sit down and take our elbows and push our knees open just a little bit, reset, and then you guys can stand up. That's 1. We're doing 10 of these total. So your depth will depend on your mobility and your body. The lower, not necessarily the better, because we want to keep our back straight. So if I'm going Too low, my back starts to round. That's not so good. If you find you can't sit low enough to get your elbows in contact with your legs, you can always just use your arms and give yourself a little bit of that pressure, which is helping us to loosen up your adductors, your inner thigh muscles, and overall just open up our hips. So we'll go through 10 reps total of that one. And then we are going to one more till we're back down on the floor. So these next two are all about activation. This first one's for the glutes. The next one is for the core. We're going to do our hip loaded step through. So we'll start off standing shoulder hip width apart, soft knees, hip hinge, and then we'll start off on whatever leg you want. I'll start on my left. So I'm going to shift all of the weight onto my left leg, and then this leg just lands back wherever it lands with that hip hinge. And then you can align your opposite hands, and we'll pull the hips forward. So again, push your hips back, and then pull the hips forward. We'll go through 10 per side, and this is a hip loaded step through. So I'm trying to load up my hips on the way back, and then pull my hips forward, getting a nice activation in this front standing leg. And the opposite arms, that's just, for good practice. You don't necessarily have to set up your arms and legs together like that, but I would like you to if you can. But if it totally messes you up, just go through the hip loaded situation, because that's the most important. So we'll do 10, and then the other side, 10. Same setup. You can start with your feet together, go through that hinge, align that foot, and then we'll go through that hip hinge. So once you guys are done, both legs, we will head down onto the ground, onto our back to get our core nice and fired up and ready to go, because you guys know that is our built-in weight belt. That's going to help us protect everything through our lower back, our torso. So we got to fire up these muscles. We'll lay on our back. Arms and legs are going to extend up into the air, pushing our lower back into the floor as tight as we can. That is the most important part. Now today we're testing our coordination as well, because we're going to take the right hand and the left leg and lower them down, send them down, bring them back up, and then the other two go down. So we've done lots of variations of the dead bug, maybe somewhere we have our hand and leg together. Makes it a little easier to get the coordination going on in this one. We want opposite arm and leg. The other two do not move. So these two are staying completely still until these ones come back, and then those ones go down, and we switch sides. So we're alternating one side to the other side, 20 total, 10 per side. Lower back's being squished into the floor, which makes you feel all those muscles in your core firing up. If you feel like you can't keep your back down, you can try doing this with a bent leg. That rule always applies for any sort of ab exercise or core exercise where we're on our back. If you feel like your back's coming off the floor into an arch, bending the legs most of the time will make it a lot more manageable. Okay, all right, so we're gonna get you guys started. Once you've done that, you can stand yourself up. Hopefully you're feeling warm and active and ready to go. We are going to start you off with two exercises that we are supersetting. First one is squats. Yay. So today we're doing a paused squat. You guys are doing 10 reps total with a 3-second pause at the bottom of each rep. So in terms of weight, I'm going to front load my 2 dumbbells, hold them in front of me here. If you're working with bands, if you don't have dumbbells, we're going to take our band and put it around our knees, right above our kneecap. Don't worry, that was just the band, it didn't slap me. So you can band up and put that band right around your knees. I'm going to use both, which is also an option, so you guys can see what's going on. And I'll use the yellow band so you can actually see it, because my black pants are not helping the case. So get yourself set up here. We are going to start off with these squats. We can go right into our working weight. So you can grab your weight, front load it. We're sitting down, 1, 2, 3, and then we stand up. That's 1, we're doing 10. So 1, 2, 3, and we'll go through 10 reps total. And we are going to superset this, but we're starting with these ones, so you can start your first set right now. So if you do not have weights, you can just have your hands in front of you here and count out that nice, honest 1, 2, 3-second pause. It's not a 1, 2, 3. Count nice and slowly. normally, and then we'll do 10 reps total. Oh, yes, the squats. Okay, so we're doing 10 of those. Once you guys are done, we are pairing this with a reverse lunge, or step back lunges. We're doing 10 per side, all one side at one time. So we'll move our weights down to the bottom here if you're using a band. And I take the band and loop it around my opposite foot. We'll be stepping back into a lunge and then driving our knee up at the top, going through 10 reps per side. So we'll start on this one side, and we'll do all this side here, trying to pull ourselves up, like we've been talking about for the past few weeks here, rather than push ourselves with that back foot. So we want to use that front leg to pull ourselves up to the top, into that knee drive. We'll do 10 on this side, 10 on the other side. If you are working with bands, we have opposite band around opposite foot, and then we can go through that knee drive. If you find your knee drive gets in the way, you can also switch what hand you're holding that band in, depending on lots of things. How wide your shoulders are, how wide your hips are, all the above. All right, so this is you guys. 10 and 10 with the squats. We are going to take some rest in between our sets. We are going through 3 more after this one. But before we go into our next set here, I'm just going to give our lower body a quick 30 seconds, less than a minute, but about 30 to 45 seconds to rest before we go into our next set. So once you're done, 10 and 10, you can grab yourself a quick sip of water, walk it off, think about how that felt. Remembering that we do not want to be able to get more than that prescribed amount of reps. So when I say 10, we don't want to be thinking like, I could probably do 12 or 15. We only want to do 10. So going into this next set here, with this paused set of 10 squats, when we're working with this pause, we want to be as active as possible. So a couple things that you can think about on this next set here as we start probably pretty soon, because it's about that time. As we go down, you can think about pushing your knees out to the sides, which is going to help create more tension and pressure throughout the back and sides of your legs. And then before you come up, we want to squeeze all those muscles, just as we talked about in that hip hinge. Talked about this one before. So it's a little bit more challenging to do this, but it still is a thing. You want to activate all your muscles at the bottom. So pause, 1, 2, 3, and then squeeze yourself out of it up to the top. And if you can be more conscious of those things happening, you're going to get more out of this set. Rather than just like sitting and standing up, we're not going to, I mean, even if you pause down here, if you're not consciously using those muscles to stand up, you're not going to use them as much. So think about it a little bit more on this next set. And let's do our thing here. So we're going right from the squats into the lunges. No rest in between. Only taking a little bit of rest once we're done those lunges. So on our next set of these ones, really for all of us, a really great way to make this more challenging, these lunges, is to simply just use this back leg less. As we start to progress through these step back lunges, 10 is not a lot. We've done 12, we've done 15. So on this set, maybe on your next 2, because you have 2 more, something that you can think about if you want to try, if you're finding these are kind of easy, are our skater squats. So the skater squats are where we lower ourselves down, and I don't use that back leg to stand up. So oftentimes when you see these done, they look kind of easy. And then you try them, and they are very, very hard, if not impossible for the majority of people. But it's not something that we can't work towards. And I know some of you can already do them. And so if you're feeling like these lunges are kind of easy, whether it's because you don't have heavy enough weights or equipment or whatever it is, that is something that you can try on lunges. Today, or maybe next week when we talk about the lunges again, is those skater squats. Okay. Woo. So we'll take some rest. Grab some water, in my case, coffee, and then we're gonna go through 2 more sets to make it 4 total. And the window's opening because it's getting getting warm in here. Okay, so we'll take a little memento here. You guys are feeling ready. We'll go into that third set. It's very fun stuff. Whoop. So remembering that nice 3-second pause. 1, 2, 3. We're trying to be active in our lower body. If you have sensitive knees, if you're starting to feel them, remember that we don't have to sit so low. You can hover above 90 degrees, and you're still going to get lots out of this without putting extra stress on your knees. But the goal is to get down to 90. So if you have nothing going on in there, make sure this is happening. We're pausing at that very uncomfortable spot, the very bottom. 10 total. So remembering that you will have to do this one more time. So we'll go right into our next set of these lunges. Again, we're stepping back into that lunge, trying to use that front leg to pull ourselves up to the top. And yes, there is some balance involved in these lunges. So do try to tap into it, especially at the top here. Don't leave until you're in control. If you feel like you just drive your knee up and then you have to come back down because you're all out of control, that is not what I want. First of all, that's unsafe. Second of all, you're not really using those muscles in the way that we could or should. So as you drive up to the top, if you can control this top part here, you're going to get much more out of it than just driving up and leaving right away. Yes. I know it's harder. I know. All right, so we have to do one more set. We'll take a moment of rest. You guys can grab some water, walk around, sit down, do whatever you want to do. Once you're done your set for about 30 seconds, we have one more to go. You guys have lots of time, about 3 minutes to finish up this first superset, this last set of these 2 exercises. Okay. Good job, you guys. All right, so 10 and 10. Take some rest right now. A couple of deep breaths. Think about our legs. Think about how strong we're going to make this last set, how challenging, uncomfortable, but how we're going to get more out of it doing it like that. We know this. So quick sip, H2O, and then pick up your weights, your band, whatever you are using for this, and let's start this so that we can finish and move on. So starting off with those paused squats. Again, if you guys are using bands, we have it right above our knees. If you're using dumbbells, we're holding them at our chest, sitting down at a normal tempo, and then spending 3 seconds at the bottom. So 1, 2 is the normal tempo, 3 at the bottom, and then 1, 2 on the way up. We don't want to just fall into it. I mean, you guys know, but the slower you do go, the harder it's going to be. That being said, I don't want you to go too slow down. Today's focus is us spending time at the bottom. So just 2 seconds. Let's do it up. Last set. 10 total of these squats. And these are the squats for today. So 1 variation of squats. So let's get it done. Right into those lunges. If you're using bands, we are looped up around opposite foot. Try to add in that knee drive. And we're going through 10 per side. Let's do it. Final set. Okay. All right, you guys, so take your time with it. We have about 1 minute here before we'll start talking about the next part, but it's plenty of time because I believe you are almost done. So we'll get both sides in here, 10 and 10. And then we'll have a moment here where we can, again, grab some water, shake it out. You guys have about 30 more seconds to finish up, and we're gonna move on. So as you guys come to an end on that one, yay, good job. You can take a quick second right now to, again, just rest a little bit. We are going to move on. I'm just going to close this because apparently someone be doing some yard work at this hour out there. Okay, so we have split squats coming up next. Yay, of course. So split squats with the rear foot elevated. I'm going to use this chair. I have this nice cushion pad on top. You will want something with a soft top if you are choosing to use your chair, your bench, your whatever, your ottoman. If not, we're going to follow along with our back foot on the floor like this. Another option is you can use a stair or stool in your house. Make sure that it's positioned safely against a wall. If it's a stair, it's positioned safely because it's a stair. But you can have your back foot up like this, which is going to add some elevation, which helps us target more of our butt on that front working leg, which is why I always choose to do this one with the rear foot elevated. So we're going to start our first set body weight because we're doing 15 reps total. So we'll start off this first set going through 15, no weights involved, trying to work with that full range of motion. So I'm going all the way down 90 degrees, pushing my hips back. My body comes forward slightly, and then I drive all the way up to the top so that my leg is straight and I'm standing upright. So 90 degrees, and then all the way up. If you have sensitive knees, maybe you're not sitting all the way down to 90 degrees, and that's totally fine. So we'll work with this first set, 15 on one side, and then you guys are going to switch and do 15 on the other side. Normal tempo, 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down, no time spent at the top or the bottom. 15. Okay, so for most of us, like this is pretty challenging, doing these for 15 reps at a time, but you guys know me better than this. We are going to add some resistance to this, of course. So I want you guys to try to do that exact same thing right here, right now. 15 reps per side, making it a little bit more challenging by adding some form of resistance. So I'm going to use dumbbells, holding both my dumbbells down by my sides. If you're using bands, we can loop up our band just as we did on those step back lunges, so that it's round opposite foot like this. Get into formation, and we are starting our first official set. That one was just a warm up, where we're doing 15 reps per side, making it harder, whether we add a band, maybe 2 bands, or dumbbells down by our sides. If you do not have any of the above, ways that you can make this harder without adding weight, go slower, slow the entire set down, or you can add a bit more control at the bottom, and maybe hold it for 1, 2 at the bottom of each. But for most of us, just adding that resistance, whether it's dumbbells or bands, is going to make this just right. Just the right amount of burning fire that you can still work through, still maintain good form and technique through, but you feel those reps, especially those last like 5 of them. So we'll do our first set here, 15 and 15. Then this is going to be a superset, as we do best, because we like to get the most out of our time and save our time more than anything else, and that's what these supersets are great for. Hip thrusts. So those ones, I'm going to have my upper back elevated on this chair now. So we'll turn around like so, and our shoulder blades are going to be on this chair. And I am not going to be adding weight for this first set, because for some of us, this is going to be hard enough. We're going up to the top, holding for 1, 2, 3, and then going down and going through 10 reps total. So if I want to make this harder, if you think that's going to be too easy for you, we can go weights on the hips or bands around the knees, just as we did in the squats on the first example there. So you can have the band right above your knees here. And then we hold 1, 2, 3, and that's a standard regardless of what equipment you're having or using or not using. We want that 3-second pause there to really feel that work, and then we go down and we'll go through 10 of those total. Burning butts. Okay, so if you don't have a chair, or maybe it's kind of rickety and sketchy, mine sounds really rickety, but trust me, it's safe. You can do this off the floor, just with your upper back on the floor. You can also, same idea, have your feet elevated on a stair or a stool of some sort, and you can go through your set with the 1, 2, 3 second pause there. Okay, so, ooh, it's hot now, a little sweaty now. So we're gonna do this again. Yes, we are. 3 more sets, to be specific. So you guys are going to stand up when you are done. We are resting in between these a little bit because we have some similar stuff going on here. Split squats, like I was saying with that back foot elevated, the way I'm pushing my hips back makes it a very glute focused exercise. Back of the hip, butte, and then we have the hip thrust, which we know is a glute focused exercise. So because we're doing these 2 together like this, we want to take a little bit of rest, at least 30 seconds, trying to keep it under a minute just for the sake of us getting through this workout on time. But do take a little bit of time here before you go into your next set so that you can have a stronger, safer set of those split squats, because we know that those are going to be very hard. So a couple deep breaths, sips of water. When you're ready, we will go into our second set. So you can grab onto your weights, your bands, whatever you are using, and we are doing 15 reps total. So again, if you're working with that back foot on the ground or on a stair or a stool, whatever you're using to elevate your foot is lower than the height of your knee, we typically will want your toes down like so. Whereas if it's higher than that, then we want to have your foot positioned like this rather than this, as this is going to allow you to use more of the front leg, but you can't do that down here. It doesn't really work. So we want that toe to pivot on. So you use that as well if you're using a stool or a stair or something like that. Okay. So second set. Oh, yes. 15 reps. All right. So we'll go through these ones. Both legs. Yay. And then we have those hip thrusts. Woo! And then you guys still on your split squats, because these ones take a while to get through. Okay, so we'll do our thing, both legs, 15, 15, going right into those hip thrusts with the pause at the top. So lots of times it can be quite confusing. Used to get this question a lot when I was teaching more in-person classes and stuff, but pausing our reps, where do we pause to make it harder? The squats, you're pausing at the bottom, because this is where the most tension is. It's the hardest part of this exercise on the way down. Whereas on the hip thrust, we're pausing at the top, because that is where it is the hardest, is at the top of the rep when our hips are at the very top. So anytime you're thinking about that or confused, we want that squeeze where that strongest contraction is. That is where we want that pause. So hip thrust is at the top, whereas the squat would be at the bottom, because that's where that squeeze happens that brings us up, that I'm always trying to ingrain in your head. Okay, so we'll go through these hip thrusts, and then we will again take some reps. You guys can literally sit, you can stand, walk it off, pet your dog, grab some water. Don't go too far though, because you want to keep the rest under a minute. But take a little bit of time here. You're going to go through 2 more sets of this stuff, and we're moving on. After this superset, we have 1 more, and then we are working on core. Just to give you guys a little outlook on the plan for the rest of the class. So I want to say this is the hardest part here, but maybe that's because I really don't like split squats. I mean, I love them, but I hate them. They make me feel horrible in the moment, but then after you feel great because you did them. All right, so a couple deep breaths, and then we'll go into our third set. When you guys are ready, back to this first one, our split squats, working through 15 per side. Let's do it. I've got to open this back up here. Hopefully that guy's gone. Okay, so when you guys are ready, let's get it. Third set. All right. So breathe through these reps, you guys, especially those last 5. Remember that exhale is your power. Whenever you're struggling, get some air in and exhale it out, and it will help you push through that rep. The last 5 reps, whatever you're on that you feel like you're not going to make it, try to exhale through them because we can most of the time make it, and that breath helps. All right. So we're going through our 3rd set. If you guys have not started already, we should certainly start. We have about 6 minutes to finish up this one and the next set, which is lots of time. So take your time. Good job, guys. So we're going 15, 15, followed by 10 of those hip thrusts. With that nice active 3-second pause or hold at the top. A couple things you guys can do to make yourself feel your hips, your butt a little bit more in these hip thrusts. The 3-second pause helps a lot, just to have that time at the top to really think about and hold and squeeze. But if you want to feel it a little bit more, you can think about adding more pelvic tilt. So we want to take our pelvis and tilt it under like this way, and that is going to help you be able to squeeze your butt more and use it more in this hip thrust. Whereas if I have my back arched like this and I don't have my ribs kind of tucked in like so, I'm going to feel my lower back, I'm going to feel my quads, pretty much everything else except my butt. So if you're not feeling it, or if you want to feel it a little bit more, you can think about kind of crunching in or tilting that pelvis under, and that goes for sounds very sketchy. That goes for if your back's on the chair or on the ground or your feet are up, whatever you're doing for that hip thrust, that pelvic tilt makes a huge difference. So you want to take that into your last set because you guys have one more. So we'll take some rest. And then we have one more round of both of these, which is good news because it's your last one of the split squats. So we'll get ourselves into formation, grabbing onto our equipment, whether it's our band or dumbbells, setting ourselves up. Okay, let's do this. So before we start that first set, regardless of what you're holding in your hands, we want to pull our shoulder blades together, which is going to help us keep our back nice and straight here. Because the shoulders are together, you might feel like you kind of have to stay up like this, but we want to push the hips back. So try to do that on every rep. Hips go back behind you, shoulders together. Yes, it's going to feel harder, but it's going to be a lot better, a lot more involved in terms of your technique, the muscles you're using. So try it out. Last set, 15. And then we're going to keep it as even as possible on that second side. So whatever you're doing right now, remember how it feels. We're going to try to take it exact same thing we did onto the other side. Let's do it. Okay. So do your thing, you guys. We have one final set of our hip thrust. Woo. Last set. So once you're done all of your split squats, we're going to do our final set of these hip thrusts. 10 reps. 1, 2, 3-second pause at the top of every rep. And strong squeeze. If you're using your weights or your bands, grab it. Let's do it. Final set of this one. So we'll go through 10 of these. And then we are moving on to the next part. Doing your hip thrust on here, we're going to try doing our single leg on here. If for some reason this is too challenging, and or if you don't have access to this, of course, you are on your back on the floor, doing the same thing on the floor rather than on this bench. So we're going to set up here, shoulder blades are on the same place. Feet are very narrow, they're touching almost together, knees together. Put yourself into the very top of that bridge, and then we're going to lift up one leg, go down and up 15 times. Let's go. Going through again, normal tempo, not pausing anywhere. 2 seconds up, 2 seconds down. 15, And then we will switch and do 15 on the other side. Now, if this is too hard right away, if you can't get your hips all the way up, you can try doing a staggered stance where I have that little kickstand assistance from that other leg. Or again, you can always do this one off the floor with your upper back on the floor rather than on a chair. It makes a huge difference in terms of how hard it is. Most important thing is that you're able to get your hips all the way up to the top. So if that's not happening on here, try the staggered. If it's still not happening, try it on the floor. Okay. Ouch! 15 and 15 for the glutes. So once you're done, we are standing up and pairing this with side lunges. So for weights, I'm going to be using dumbbells. We are going to be sitting up in a wide stance position like so. Dumbbells are going to be in front of me. If I don't have dumbbells, you can do this body weight, or if you'd like, you can grab a band and just hold it down in front of you here to help add some tension to your upper body and give you something to just hold in your hands. I'm in this very wide set stance with my toes slightly pointed out. Whatever I'm holding is in front of me. I'm going to push my hips back and shift over to one side, and then pull my hips forward and shift to the center. So the first thing I do is push my hips back, and then I start to bend over to one side, and then I reverse that back up to the top. So I'll show you guys from the side on my slippery hardwood floor. Hopefully I don't end up doing splits. So hips back, and then I'm over to one side so that my knee on this side stays back and it doesn't drive forward like this, but rather my hips go back, and then I'll come up to the top. So every rep is 1. We're doing 20 total, right side, left side, alternating right and left, 10 per side, 20 total. Let's do it. So again, if you are working without dumbbells, you can hold a band down in front of you just to add some tension to your upper body. Same rules apply, hips back. You want to push the knee out to the side so that it doesn't cave in, but rather is pushed out. All right. So this is you guys. We are going to repeat this one 3 more sets. No rest in between. Just a little bit if you need to grab some water, ponder your life. And then we're going right into our second set, repeating 3 more of these ones. So we're back into our single leg hip thrust, hip bridge, back lunges, back to back to back, trying to take little to no rest in between, just that transition time that it takes to get between these exercises. And then we are almost there. So once we're done our next 3 sets of these 2, we are going to be hanging out on the floor, working our core. Woo. So let's do it. So we're back into this first one. And if you're working on the floor, same rules apply on that setup. We want to squish the lower back into the floor, which helps us activate the core. Feet are very close together. You can go up to the top, drive one knee, and then you can go through your hip bridge. So the one different thing, if you are doing this off of the floor, as you come down into your rep, you want to think about pushing your low back down before the back of your butt. So you shouldn't feel your butt touch the floor. We should feel our low back touch the floor. And that is making sure that we are not, again, arching, and we're putting ourselves into this pelvic tilted position here. So that's a little thing that you can do, is just squish your back down into the floor. And don't be surprised if this one feels like it's really hard, like you can't get your hips all the way up, because it's a really challenging exercise, the single leg hip thrust. And we're doing 15 reps per side, which just automatically, you guys know, makes things just that much more challenging. So we'll try our best to, again, breathe into those, exhale those hips up to the top. Try to do as many proper reps as you can. And then if you need to finish off your set with the staggered stance ones, that's totally fine. All right, so 15 and 15, back up and at them into these side lunges. Now these side lunges, to be honest with you guys, I absolutely despised these for years, but that was because I never really knew how to do them properly. And the thing about them is that there's not really the perfect or right way to do them. It really comes down to how your body's built and the way your hips are positioned and all that. So In your set, if you're feeling a little uncomfortable in these, you can play around with what's happening with a couple things. First of all, how wide your feet are. If your feet are too wide, just a little sketchy, you're gonna end up doing the splits. But the other thing is, as we come down, my knee is not sitting on top of my ankle, on top of my heel. It's kind of sitting inward, which we don't want. We want it out there. So then I would have to kind of narrow up a little bit. On the flip side, if you're too close, if your feet are not wide enough, you're going to come down and feel like your knee is being pushed forward and your hips are being rocked back because you don't have enough space to sit down. So you can do this within your set, within those first few reps. Sit down, and if you need to, you can inch your foot away, inch this one away. Just make it comfortable, and then start your set and see if that helps you. If anyone out there is feeling uncomfortable in those lunges, because I feel you on that. That's something that helps. So we have 2 more rounds of this stuff to go through. Are you guys ready? We'll do a 3rd set, back to those hip thrusts, which are getting seemingly harder as we go through each set, especially because we are not taking any rest in between these sets. Okay. So let's do our thing here. We have 1 more set of these 2. After this one, let's get it for the glutes. So your butt, your glutes, back of your hips are the driving, most worked muscle in that single leg hip thrust. That is where you should feel it, is your butte, every time you lift your hips up. The side lunges are more of a dynamic focus where we have lots of different things that are being worked here. As we go down, there is some glute focus, but not so much like the very back of your butt. We're more hitting like the side glute muscles as we have to push our hips up. The other reason why I really love these side lunges now that I can do them properly, is you get some sneaky mobility in here. As we push our hips back and over to the side, we're also getting a nice active stretch through that inner thigh on the side. So you can think about that and try to create that for yourself. And then at the same time, we're trying to use this leg to push ourselves up to the top. So we're getting work on one side, a little sneaky stretch on the other, which makes it a great choice of an exercise, which is why we're doing it. So let's do it. With this one more. Let's do super fast. So you guys we have about 4 minutes until we really should be starting our final part here. But I presume you guys won't need longer than about 2 to finish this up. So let's get it. All right. So our final set of these 2. And last part is on a timer. Woo! Okay. Final set, you guys. Let's get it. This is it. The last time you're here today. All right. So we'll give you guys a couple more minutes here to finish up this fun set. Strongest set. Try and get your hips all the way up to the top every single rep. I know it's the hardest one, but this is the one that matters the most, that you do to the full extent. So let's get into using that breath, exhaling into those reps, especially the last 5. Now you're remembering those ones are the hardest, most important. So get your hips all the way up. Whatever you're doing over here, we need to happen on the other side. So let's do it. Final set. Good job, you guys. We are so close. The last part of our workout takes us 12 minutes. Yes. And it is down on the floor. Yes. Good news. Maybe. We'll see. All right. So final set of these two. Getting in those hip thrusts, finishing up with our last set of these side lunges, which hopefully is going to feel like our best set yet. Weights in front of us, holding our band. We want to push our hips back. If we need to slightly kind of adjust a little bit, whether it's how wide we are. The other thing you can adjust is the angle of your foot, whether you have a bigger or smaller angle. Little changes make a huge difference on how this feels. And it should not feel painful. Shouldn't feel any sort of sharp, pinchy pain anywhere. Maybe a little uncomfortable, but shouldn't be painful. All right, final set. This is you guys, and then we are going to move on to the last part, the core. So 20 times, 10 per side, and then we go down. And get this out of the way. All right, you guys, nice work. Good job. Okay. The part you've been waiting for. Maybe we're going to be hanging out down on the floor here until the very end here, which is in 12 minutes. So we need to start so that we can finish on time. We have 3 exercises that we're going to go through off of my timer. 40 seconds on, 20 seconds off. So we have double the amount of work and rest. We're going through these 3 exercises, 4 sets total, and then we are done. So we're going to start with the first one. I will show it to you. I'll start the timer, and then I'll show you the other 2 on the timer so we can get this done. Lateral bear crawls. So we're going to come to one side of our mat. I'm going to show you guys sideways so you can see what's going on. We're on our hands and our knees. Shoulders over the wrists, hips over the knees. We're going to pop off the knees, hover, and then take opposite arm and leg and take steps sideways down the length of our mat and then come back. So get yourself set up because we're going to start this in 3, 2, 1. Here we go. So hovering, we want left arm, right foot to move. Opposite arm, opposite foot. The goal in this one is to keep your hips and torso as still and stable as possible. So when I first started learning this one, someone explained it to me. Imagine there's a glass of water resting on your back. Not actually, but just imagine it. And you're trying not to spill that water. So we don't want any sort of tilting or shifting to happen in our hips. We want to keep everything as still as possible so you kind of like a tabletop on your back. Easier said than done, I know. 3, 2, 1. That's nice work, you guys. Okay, so next one is going to be on our back. We have a version of the dead bug. So we're laying all the way down onto our back. I'm not just on the worst spot here. Arms and legs are up, just like in the warm-up. We're going to squish our back into the floor here. Lift our shoulders off the floor, so we're in this sort of hollow position. And then we go opposite arm, opposite leg, into the dead bug, trying to squish our lower back into the floor, getting that coordination that we were working in the warm-up. So thinking about 2 limbs moving and 2 staying. And because my shoulders and head are lifted off the floor, it makes it way harder to keep my back down and to do this one. So if you need to make it easier, you can relax your head and shoulders down back on the floor. And again, you can bend your legs if you struggle to keep your back down. Oh, 3, 2, 1, rest. Good job, you guys. Okay, last one. So last one is not so much your abs or your core itself. It's more about stability of your core and your hips. So we're going to get ourselves into a bridge position, lower back squished into the floor. I will lift my hips up into the bridge, lift my arms up, and then we're going to lift up one leg at a time without having our hips shift or tilt. So I don't want any of this happening. I want to stay strong and try to stabilize so that I don't lose that positioning of my hips. So with this one, if you need to make this a bit easier, you put your hands back down on the floor. And again, you don't want any tilting. So if that's happening, you can widen up your feet, narrow them, play around with how wide or narrow they are. See if you can find a position that allows you to stay stable. When in doubt, hold. Now you guys can rest. Woo! All right, so this is you guys. We're doing it again. 3 more sets. Back to the first one, that lateral bear crawl. Woo! Okay, so come over to one side of the mat. Again, hands and knees. Toes will lift up. Then we have opposite hand, opposite foot. So this is important that you have the opposites working together. And we want to take just little steps, not too big, because if they're too big, then you'll lose that stability in your hips. So we'll go through this one. If this is too hard, we'll just hold this off knee position, and you can work with shoulder taps instead of taking those actual steps. 10 more seconds. Whew. This one. 3, 2, 1. Rest. Good job, you guys. Okay. So we're flipping over onto our back into this dead bug variation with this little hollow hold. We've been working on the hollow hold, yes. So this dead bug is incorporating that into the dead bug. So get yourself onto your back, 90 degrees, arms are straight. We'll lift those shoulders off the floor, tuck our chin in, and then you can lower opposite arm, opposite leg. So we want to be filling up the lungs right here. Inhale, and then exhale as you go down. Inhale on the way back up, and then exhale on the way down. So fighting the floor with the lower back is absolutely crucial. We need that back pushed down in full contact with the floor. If that's not happening, you're not really working your core the way we should. You're also putting your back at risk, which we don't want. 3, 2, rest. Good job, you guys. I don't know why this beep is so weird. It's like quiet 1 second and the next like super loud. Anyways, we are going to go into those bridge walks. So we're on our back still, and squishing the back into the floor, driving the hips up into the bridge. Now, before you lift up one of your legs, we want to think about squeezing the opposite hip so we find that stability. And then when you switch, do that on the other side. So squeeze, stabilize, and then lift up, rather than just lifting and having your hips drop and tilt. And we don't want that. It's not getting you much of anything. So really do try to tighten it up. Challenge yourself to doing it with your arms up, but know that it's going to be really hard. And if you need to make it easier, you can put your hands back down on the floor. 10 more seconds. Let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. 3, 2, 1. Good job, you guys. All right. Okay, so we have 2 more rounds, and we're done. 6 minutes, and then we're done. Okay, so back to the first one, lateral bear crawl. So if you don't have enough space, you don't really need much space. You don't have to take all of those steps down the length of your mat. Also, if it's too hard, you can not take so many steps, just a couple. Opposite arm, opposite foot. And you can go back. By taking that lateral movement, by actually moving sideways as we go through this, we're really challenging that stability of our hips, having to keep our back flat, resting that glass of water. I used to have these like sand-filled balls that I would put people's backs. So those are things that you can think about, is just trying to stay stable so that whatever's on your back does not fall off or roll off. Ooh, easier said than done. 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. Good job, you guys. Whew, that one. That one is another one that looks so much easier than it actually is. All right. Dead buggin'. So we'll go ahead and lay on our back. Arms up, legs up. 90 degrees. We want the knees sitting right over the hips. And then we lift up and start our set. So we're really focusing on, again, opposite arm and leg, controlling the two that are not lowering, and breathing. We don't want to hold our breath. So every time you lower down, we're exhaling, letting that air out. Let's do this. More than halfway. 1. Just when you thought dead bugs were getting easy. Just kidding. I don't think anyone ever thought that. We all know that they are very hard. 3, 2, 1, rest. Good job, you guys. Okay. Bridge walks. So these ones, I mean, they can be super easy. If you're not doing the most crucial thing that I'm asking of you, which is stabilizing your hips, you're not really getting anything out of this. Maybe a little bit of work in your butt, which is not what I want. I want that core work. So you're going to get that core work. If you start with pushing your back down, driving your hips up, keeping them lifted up to the top, thinking about pulling in your belly button and squeezing your butt and not allowing your hips to fall, because your core is working here to keep your hips up if you keep your hips up. But if you don't, then you're not going to get that work of your body resisting gravity, because gravity wants you to fall down, and you're working everything throughout your torso to keep that hip up. So that's what's going on here. 10 more seconds for you to think about it. Remember, you one more set. 3, 2, 1. Yes. Okay, here we are. Final set. Here we are. Starting off with the lateral bear crawls. Put them first so you can get them done. So get yourself into formation, into position, because we are starting in 3, 2, let's go. So we pop off the knees, opposite hand, opposite leg, trying to stay as stable as possible through our back. Keep our knees just hovering off the floor. We don't want to have our hips lifting up into the air. You know, your body just wants to do anything and everything to make things easier, and lifting the hips up just happens. So make sure to keep them down. 15 more seconds. When in doubt, just hold this position. Just breathe into it. You're almost there. Come on now. 3, 2, 1. Woo-hoo-hoo. Nice job, you guys. All right. Done that one. He's done. We got these last 2. The dead bug, the bridge walks, and we are all done. Get on with the days. All right, arms and legs up. Back into the floor. Shoulders off the floor, which makes you feel like your back is probably stronger, which is good. And we'll go through that dead bug. Again, getting some brain work going on here, having to think, control your limbs, coordination happening right now. It's harder when you're doing it with core work, we know. So slow it down here. Try to connect opposite arm and leg. You guys got this. 10 more seconds left. Breathe through these last few reps. Finishing strong. 3, 2, 1. Yes. Okay. Last one. The bridge walks. And then we're going to finish here, laying on our back, which is going to be nice. But first, we're going to get through 40 seconds of this. Bridge position, strong core, trying to lift our arms up if we can, and let's go. So again, we're trying to squeeze our butt, stabilize our hips, so there's not even a little bit of drop or tilt happening in our hips. See if you can make this happen in this final set, on the most important set right now. 20 seconds left. And they're all important. But now is when you're tired, and you might want to just stop. But you know it's important that you keep going. For the last 10 seconds that you guys have left, even if you're just holding that bridge, do not let your hips touch the floor. Only in 3, 2, 1, you can relax your hips. You guys are done. Woo! Now, we're already on our back. We're just here. And so it is meant to be that we go right into our glute stretch. So you guys can bring up this leg, place your ankle on the opposite knee. Some of you might feel a stretch just fine right here, but most of us are going to want to reach through and grab this leg, pull it in towards us to get a nice deep stretch going on this glute on this opposite side. So we did a lot of glute and butt work today, which means we want to stretch out the back of our hips. So we're going to spend a nice solid 60 seconds holding this stretch on each side. Okay, I'm going to leave you guys with this one and one more that I want you to work through. So it's important that you are actually patient right now and you hold these stretches. So I want you to stay on this side, take some nice deep breaths, maybe about 10 deep breaths. And then we'll switch and do the same thing on the other side. So as we're going into this, we're trying to inhale and then exhale and get a bit more comfortable in that stretch. So you guys have about 20 seconds to 1 minute, and then we'll switch. And we're doing this one so that you at least get one solid set in. But if you want to do a couple more, I would highly suggest you do, and that is when we are, after this next one I'll show you. So you guys can relax that one side, and we'll bring up the other now and do the same thing on this other side. So we'll spend 1 minute and hold this stretch here. Breathe into it, same thing as we did on the first side for 60 seconds. So especially if you are feeling like you're kind of tight in your hips, in the front of your hips, back of your hips, your lower back, where you get pretty tight after these workouts. If you spend an extra 2 to 5 minutes stretching on top of the time that we stretch together, it helps a lot. Obviously, there are other things, water intake, sleep, all of that, but having this static stretch to finish off your workout definitely helps us to loosen up everything that we did and overall not feel so tight after our sessions. So we have about 10 more seconds on this side. So if you're feeling like that's you, please come back here and do one more set. But the next one that I want you guys to do is for the lower back. And it is us rounding our back and walking our hands away, sitting onto our heels, which is going to help us get a nice stretch throughout our entire low back. You can spend at least a minute down here, 30 seconds to a minute, holding this stretch. If you have sensitive knees, you can find yourself a chair or something to put your hands on so that you don't bend your knees so much, and it'll be just fine. Or you could just leave your hips lifted up in the air like this. So, any other stretches that you guys want to do, please, now is your time to shine. Maybe you want to go into that bow and arrow. Maybe you want to spend some time stretching out your hip flexors. Your body's nice and warm, your joints, your muscles, your ligaments, all those things. So please do take some time now if you do want to stretch. You guys are done with me though. Yay! Amazing job. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave, for coming out live. You rock. If you're watching the replay, drop a comment. I know you were here. We'll see you guys tomorrow and the next day and all week. And I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.